When you are chosen to wear the green and gold, you should draw strength from knowing that the whole nation is with you. And on your return, you should be welcomed home and celebrated for the inspiration you have brought to the next generation of Australian athletes. Yet, 45 years ago, the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan cast a dark shadow over what should have been your shining moment. Those who went and those who withdrew were both subject to all manner of vile abuse, even death threats. Australia won 9 medals, yet the returning athletes were met only by cold silence or cruel comments. Today, we fix that. Today, on the 45th anniversary, we recognise all that you have achieved and acknowledge all that you have overcome. Take pride in both. You are Olympians, you are Australians, and you have earned your place in the history of the game and our nation. Welcome to Parliament and welcome home. Yeah.
Michelle, I'm so glad we are finally having this chat. This has been a moment, long time in the making.
Oh, yes. 45 years.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
And you have pushed really hard for this. I mean, is that resilience, is that the athlete in you?
I think so. I in my book, the president of the IOC wrote, she's a force of nature. I think this is that force but I'm really doing this also for my teammates. It's an important moment for them, as well as myself, of course, but I think there's something more in this than just a celebration.
I can already see it in you, how much this means to you. Why?
I think it's the moment that you have this memory of what happened 45 years ago as you were boarding the plane for Moscow. And we were snuck out of the country. We were like thieves trying to get away, not allowed to tell our parents. The plane took us to a space that we didn't know we were going.
Explain these emotions to me right now, because I don't think people understand how terribly our athletes were treated who went to Moscow.
Yeah, I think that's where this whole story comes back to haunt those athletes that lived through that time, and we suffered. Our parents suffered. Our family suffered. The Australian public suffered because of what the call of the government at the time was asking us to do. And
they were telling you, don't go to Moscow, boycott the games.
Correct. And we couldn't understand that. We were 18, 17 years of age. I was 17 years of age. And I said, well, if the government's selling wheat and minerals to the Russian state, why are they asking us, the athlete, not to go? It just didn't make sense.
That was the hypocrisy of it all, wasn't it? That you're being told boycott the games when, as an elite athlete, you have this tiny window.
Yes.
And you've worked your whole life for this moment. You're being told don't do this, but the government is still trading with Russia. There's a bit of hypocrisy there.
Very much so. And that's, when people ask me, well, why don't you boycott? Because, that's the right thing to do. And I said, well, how is it the right thing to do when this is still going on? We became political pawns in this game. And I think that weighed heavily because we didn't know what the game was. We weren't aware of exactly the politics of going on. Like today we have social media, we have enough media to tell you what's going on in the world.
Did you understand that Russia had invaded Afghanistan and that this was being led by the US and other Western countries?
Funnily enough, I had to go back and research that when I was writing my book because I didn't understand. I didn't. Why was this a call from the US president to open up this question on whether the athletes should go or not. We're going to boycott only if Russia pulls out of Afghanistan. Well, 40 years later, Russia's nearly still in Afghanistan. And what was so even more crazy about it, and I realised it when I was again writing my book, is the fact that in the opening ceremony, we're standing down in the hull of the stadium, and Afghanistan is sitting behind us. That just didn't compute at all. And you think, well, hold on, if Russia's invading Afghanistan, why is Afghanistan here in Russia? It was just a very hard issue for me to come to terms with.
At the time, those who decided to go were described as being young, naive, and stupid.
We were always called stupid. An athlete was stupid back then.
Yeah.
We should stay out of everything. We're noisy, we're not very welcome anywhere.
Do what you're told.
Do what you're told, yes.
Michelle, what I've come to know of you so far, that ain't you now, and I'm probably sure it wasn't you even back as a teenager.
Look, I towed the line. I respected those who were giving me instruction. But when something happens that you're not sure of, I did question, and those questions aren't always received very well. But and that's where I come to today, and I think this whole element of the tragedy that we lived through, and to get back on the blocks and to keep training and to keep your head space in the right manner towards a goal. It was just, it hit you square in the eyes, and you couldn't that measure. So when you do go to Moscow, I don't think we even spoke to the media. I think we were banned from speaking to the media. We were banned from speaking to everyone. Finally, after that, I think the voice did come to the fore, and it was in Baden-Baden the year after Moscow that I finally found my voice.
Yeah, we'll get to that and sort of how Moscow changed. I want to go back. Describe that moment when you found out you'd been selected for the Moscow Olympic Games.
Oh, I was over the moon because it was my second Olympics, and someone had said to me, "Oh, you go to the first Olympics to feel the atmosphere and get it, but you go to the second to win." So I was there to win.
And in Montreal, you were 14.
Yes, yes. But I still thought I was going to win. I didn't listen to them. I still had the intent of winning, but we had other issues in Montreal that were once again hit us pretty hard, and that was the East German swimmers that we were up against. Yeah. So we didn't have much of a chance in Montreal.
Yeah. So when you find out you're going to Moscow, but then that excitement is short-lived because this storm erupts.
Yes, it was up and down. I think you could make reference, like for the COVID, what the kids just went through, the team went through to get to Tokyo in 2021, which was cancelled because of the COVID. It was that question whether we're going or we're not. And that pulls heavily on any athlete, because why would you train? Why would you get in and slog yourself out if you're not going? So it took a lot of effort to overcome that and keep on the track. And
you've been training, I mean, you'd been training for years. You were juggling year 12, and then all of a sudden this opportunity could be taken away from you.
Yes, and it was disheartening for a lot of athletes who missed that opportunity. And my friends and I was training in Moscow under Don Talbot, who was an Australian coach at the time, and when the Americans pulled off, it was so hard to be next to them and think, but Australia hadn't yet decided. So we didn't know our destiny yet. the Americans said no, then we're sitting there waiting for Australia to decide one way or another. Everyone's hanging on to the edge of the seat. It was a terrible time, but to feel the disappointment of the American athletes was tough.
Is there any place for politics in sport?
I don't think we can divorce to that degree, but I think the difference today is that the athletes have a voice, and that voice has changed sport in the way sport is conducted.
But that only happened because of Moscow, and you were critical to that change.
Yes, I was honoured to be invited to voice out the athletes' thoughts on how the movement should move forward. And
So until Moscow, the athletes didn't have a voice, and it was after that all of a sudden you and some pretty high-profile athletes became representatives for Olympians all around the world.
Yes, it was we were thrown together. We didn't know each other prior, and we end up in this little town, Baden-Baden, in the middle of Germany, and we sort of didn't know what was expected of us. They gave us they thought we were, stupid athletes on the field of play. That's where you should stay. So they gave us an itinerary of visiting schools, of going and having lunches and dinners, as at that time was the boys' club of the aristocracy of Europe and others. So I think we were thrown into this sort of champagne fest, and we're shipped around, but those athletes, or a number of us in particular, and that with Thomas Bach, Sebastian Coe, myself, and in fact Ivar Former, who was a Norwegian skier, we sat down and we said, no, we're going to make a difference here.
Yeah. Do you think you would have done that or been involved in that had you not gone through the Moscow experience?
We wouldn't have been there. The Olympic movement was on its knees. It wasn't going to survive. If Australia and other Western nations didn't sign up to go, we would not have an Olympic Games today.
Had everyone boycotted Moscow? Why?
Because it wasn't an Olympic Games anymore. There was no future. If the world was going to be pulled apart, East and West, it was the Cold War. We have to remember it was a terrible time anyway. Germany was cut in two. You've got all the Eastern Europe in one hold, and all the West. So I think that I do, and everyone said it, that the Olympic movement was dead.
Can you also get your head around what you were having to deal with as a teenager? You feel like the whole country is against you, and then when you jump in the pool, you're up against doped up swimmers from East Germany. I mean, there were battles on every front that you faced, Michelle.
It was a bit of a challenging time. I sometimes call it the dark era of sport, because everything was thrown at us. And then the kitchen sink, right?
Yeah.
Like, you think you're going over one thing, and then you're thrown into another. And it was concentration and complete putting the blinkers on. You just can't look, you can't listen, you can't hear. You've just got to be in yourself.
And what did you do? You rose to the occasion and you won gold, the only individual Aussie gold in Moscow.
It was amazing that I made it across the line first, honestly. Yeah. I mean, I'd been beaten by the East Germans in my previous events. And that event, I said, and I fell into their game because they had a strategy, because they were a team. We weren't. We didn't have psychologists. We didn't have physiologists. We didn't have anyone. We only had our coaches on the deck, and who
because
were
they'd
fantastic.
compete as a team, wouldn't they? That
they did.
Someone would go first, and then they'd work together like almost like a relay team. Mm-hmm. So you're up against it, and they're doped to the hilt.
Yes.
Steroids. But
so
then,
you knew they could come back.
Yeah. But then, you didn't just beat them. You blitzed them, like you left them in your wake, Michelle.
Yeah, I was surprised at the 150 metre mark.
Yeah.
With my coach, we said we devised it. Usually in an 800, you go out a little bit easier to bring it home. And I'm always a negative split swimmer, so I always came home faster than I went out. But this time we decided to go, and I'm sure the East Germans analysed my swim. We had never analysed theirs because we didn't have any footage of them. So we're sitting there going, okay, we'll go at the 200 or 150 mark. And I went straight through them. And I went straight through them. I think I shot the billios out of them.
Yeah.
And then, but the whole way, after I went through them and took the lead, I said, these guys are nonetheless doped. And they're going to come back at me. And I need to hold back some reserves so when they do, I'm ready for that challenge. And I think that's why, it wasn't about the time. It was about winning.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to manage that differently. So, yeah, and I was surprised, so surprised that I stayed in front.
Explain that moment, touching and knowing that you had won gold, but also knowing all the noise that was taking place back home.
When I touched the wall, I felt the united feeling of the nation was back together. We were split 50-50, say, it varied, on the public, the people of Australia who said we should go and we shouldn't go. I think at that moment, touching that wall, that it just united Australia again, the people of Australia. The government didn't know what to do because winning it, sport just does that to a nation.
An 18-year-old girl did that. You did that.
Yes, yeah. I didn't think I thought I was old. I thought I was mature. I'd been to an Olympic Games, 14, and here I am at 18. I'm old. And in those days we were young. At 20, when I went for the 84, they told me I was too old. And that was at 22 years of age.
But did it tarnish the win at all?
For me, not.
Yep.
No, because it was still an Olympic medal, and probably the hardest Olympic medal because I was up against the East Germans as well. I think those medals count very much so.
When the Prime Minister at the time, Malcolm Fraser, was dead against Australia sending a team, can you see why?
Our alliance with the US, now I understand politics more, I see where that was important, especially in the Cold War era, that allies did have to work together, and I get that. I didn't understand why Carter called it. I mean, that still today is a mystery to me, because the Americans were also in Afghanistan at the time. So you ask yourself the question, who's what, and I don't understand that level of politics in war-torn countries to make an answer. But I just saw Carter was somewhat struggling in his own political battles at home, and this sounded like a good thing. That's how I thought of it on the day he said it. I said, this is rubbish, he's just throwing this out as a political, let's just, sounds good, right? But then it got more and more serious. It became serious until April. This was in January, he called that. So till April, that's 4 months. Then we've got our vote, which was in May. Then our Australian Olympic Federation, due to the call from our government to take a revote, they took 3 revotes. We didn't know we were going to the Games until 3 weeks before the Games.
Yeah. So all this pressure to boycott, you decide, stuff it, I'm going. Tell me about the death threats.
I didn't get them personally, and I don't think many athletes, but they went through our families, which was even more miserable.
Yeah.
I think, and I write it in my book, and I have to remember, because I found a letter when I went back through my stuff to compile some information for the book. And I found a note from my mother to say, you know, my grandfather fought in the war. These Australians, you know, they're not even a voting age. Yet, we were in the war.
You copped extraordinary backlash.
We were a country of freedom, and you know, sport was our sport, and it still is today, I think, is our currency.
Yeah. The scars run deep.
Not only for me, for all my colleagues at the team.
So explain to me what that recognition will finally mean.
It will mean acceptance. It will mean the resilience and the challenges. It showed we went beyond to achieve something magnificent.
Because you weren't celebrated when you got home.
That
There
was
were
never
no
been
parades.
celebrated. Never been celebrated. I asked my father how he felt about me winning, because I wanted to write something in the book. And he turned around and said, we didn't know how to celebrate it.
Yeah. I mean,
That was my family. Even felt that pressure. Even though they wanted me to go, they still felt that pressure.
Well, they were going, but you told them not to.
Yes.
Too much. And that makes me sad that you know, that moment that you had touching the wall first, that you couldn't look up in the stand and see your family cheering for you.
Yet they'd been at every competition, and yeah, they weren't there. But it's, I guess, my headspace that said, I can't consider this at this moment. I had the team there. We became a very solid team because of we had to. We had to shoulder each other. We had to support each other. But you know, it was terrible because you had to go and call them from Moscow, which you had to line up to get a ticket to get that, to be able to put through the call, to get the call back. So it wasn't like, oh, come on, just say hi to my folk and say, hey, we did it. Yeah. But I think there was that feeling of rejoicing. And for me, it was, you know, a moment of relief as well as a moment of amazement that I'd made it.
Yeah, you'd made it against all odds in so many ways.
There were a few.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have bet on me. I'm sure most people wouldn't have bet on me to do that.
I don't know, meeting you now, Michelle, I reckon I would have.
Yes.
But, you know, this fight for recognition that's taken so long, the sad part is not everyone will be there.
No.
Some have passed
Yes.
on. For others, it is still too hard.
Yes. It's very sad. I would have hoped that everyone saw this as that moment of reconciliation, of celebrating finally what wasn't celebrated back then. There's the feeling that, you know, it's still raw.
Yeah.
And
this is 45 years ago.
It's lived with them. I was a lucky one in that I did win gold, with not luck, but lucky that I got some recognition for that. Yeah. The others didn't have any recognition. And we were silenced. We came back from Moscow and we were silenced. You couldn't talk about it because no one knew how to. I think it's more also no one knew how to talk about it. What was acceptable, what wasn't, when the government has told the public, this is wrong. These people are not good. They're going.
You're traitors to your country.
We're traitors to the country. We were vilified to a degree that was unnecessary, uncalled for. But instead, you know, and I think that's what holds in a lot of the core of many of the athletes today is let's breathe. So I'm hoping that this measure and the government to do this is a huge thing for those athletes, that this is happening, to give the recognition to them. And I think also that I'm hoping that this will liberate that feeling of anguish and not knowing what to do.
It's going to be a big day.
It's going to be enormous.
Can lots you of pack emotions. Your tissues?
lots of emotions, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, just be in the moment because you deserve it, and thank you for fighting so hard. About bloody time.
I think everyone would agree with you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You.